Do you like wrestling? Do you ever watch wrestling?
No. Nope.
And The Rock said, whoa, 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 because I'm still standing here, custom made, brother. Woo! And I mean custom made, from the alligators to the Ole Cassini right here, Ric Flair. There's only one.
We're not the kind of guys that say, we told you so, but we told you so.
Yeah, no thank you from the Young Bucks.
Watch Wrestling with Mike Wellman.
You know who I am.
What's up, gang? Welcome to another episode of Watch Wrestling with Mike Wellman, the podcast that breaks down the biggest stories in and out of the ring. What's up, gang? My name is Mike Wellman. I am your host. We appreciate you here, as always. Thank you for hitting that play button. It's good to be here. This is episode 63 of Watch Wrestling with Mike Wellman. On this episode, we are going to be talking about AEW Collision, which has been going strong for about 5 or 6 weeks at this point. So we are going to ask and answer the question, is Collision the best wrestling show? Also, we're going to talk about LA Knight. We could not have a show without talking about whether or not WWE is screwing up LA Knight. Should he be getting a bigger push? Also, NXT talent is everywhere on the WWE TV schedule. We're seeing them at SmackDown. We're seeing Dirty Dom and Rhea on NXT. So, we're going to talk about the infusion of NXT talent across the main roster in WWE and, conversely, the main roster talent frequenting the Performance Center these days. And we're also going to talk about Jack Perry. Jungle who? This week, Jungle Boy, the artist formerly known as Jungle Boy, the new FTW champion, got into it with a legend in the game, Jerry Lynn. And we're going to talk about, that and Jungle Boy's heel turn. All that, plus, is Billy Gunn retired? And we might talk about Worcester. So, and of course, I am joined, as always, by the retconned wrestling fan himself, wrestling fan Kris, the notorious KRS. What is up, Kris?
What is up, Mike? Glad to be back, charged up, like Robbie Rage or Kenny Chaos. Just call me High Voltage.
The tag team of High Voltage.
That's correct.
Straight out of the WCW power plant.
One half of tag team champions, Rick Steiner, as well. I don't remember which one, but one of them.
I was thinking about all the WCW guys that used to be on Saturday night when I was putting together our show topics with Collision on the docket today. So yes, I don't know if either of those gentlemen are still alive, still with us, but shout out to High Voltage. There is never not a lot going on in the world of pro wrestling. So we have a lot to get to on this episode. But first, that's right. We need you to be kind, like, and subscribe. Watch Wrestling with Mike Wellman. You already know where to find this podcast. You already found this podcast, whether it was on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google. You can also find the podcast that breaks down the biggest stories in and out of the ring on social media. Watch Wrestling Pod on Facebook. We see you out there, Facebook followers. We are currently on Twitter at WWrestlingPod, currently on X, whatever. We also have an Instagram. We are Watch Wrestling Podcast on Instagram, folks. That's right. Follow us on Instagram for some behind-the-scenes content. We're probably going to be setting up a Threads, let's face it. Just haven't done it yet. So we also have a Patreon. You can consider supporting the podcast on Patreon. We have the foundation tier, the click tier, the gang affiliated tier. So choose a tier that fits. And yeah, check out what the game's been missing. Be kind, like, and subscribe. and we won't have any problems. Right, Kris?
Yes, correct.
I mean, we never don't have problems, but we won't have zero problems.
Less problems, yeah.
If you put in your debit card on our Patreon and help support the best wrestling podcast around. All right, so let's get into the show here. I figured we had to start off talking about Collision. So, is Collision the best wrestling show? Well, you know, when I thought of this segment, I was just going to say, is it one of the best wrestling shows? But then going back and checking out a few of the main events or the main matches from Collision, I had to edit that headline right down to, is Collision the best wrestling show? I mean, we've seen a lot of great matches, a couple all-timers on Collision already in its short history. Definitely a match of the year candidate with that tag team match, that 2 out of 3 falls match that went about 58 minutes with FTR in the Bullet Club Gold. That was an amazing match.
Loved it. Went back and watched it just in the middle of a day, randomly, like 2 days later. Still loved it.
I was getting amped up. Like about a half hour or so in, there was a moment where I'm like, I started to say, oh my God, this match is going on and on and on. And then there was a moment, I think it was after the first fall, and I was just like, oh my God, this is incredible. I was chanting Fight Forever in my living room.
Hey.
No, I was just telling my wife to buy me Fight Forever.
Oh, yes. A little different.
It didn't happen, so I don't have a review of that game yet. But yes, back to FTR and Bullet Club fighting forever. Yeah, so there's been a lot of good matches on Collision. We had the Owen Hart tournament unfold for the most part on Collision with Samoa Joe, CM Punk. They had a good match.
Yep.
The finale, CM Punk, Ricky Starks. That whole feud is unfolding essentially on Collision.
Absolutely. That's what I was hoping for from Collision, was getting especially Ricky Starks and Samoa Joe, 2 people that I love. If they're going to get some spotlight, that's what I wanted from Collision, and so far they've delivered.
I mean, this week on Collision, we're getting a ladder match for Andrade's putty mask between Andrade and Buddy Matthews. That's going to be good.
Like how I was saying, that's going to be great, yeah.
They had a match. I don't remember if it was I think it was the first week. Matthews and Andrade had a match, and I tweeted out, these guys are both capable of 5-star matches, so it should be good. And they've been kind of going ever since. Andrade.
I mean, Collision gives me like, I guess you call me a SmackDown mark, but it gives me that feeling of when they the brand split and Mauro Ranallo was the voice of SmackDown, and we were getting some good stuff early on in that. So that's what I think of with Collision now, especially with the different commentary team who I really enjoy. So it's pretty good.
Yeah, I was loving Kevin Kelly on commentary. I understand he has to do the G1 right now in New Japan, but I thoroughly enjoyed Kevin Kelly on commentary. I just thought that he gives you that same thing that Excalibur does, but in kind of a different way, where he's explaining to you, whether it be the history of these 2 people or just he's giving you that backstory in these little bite-sized pieces, and it's like kind of adds to it. And Nigel is out here trying to be a heel commentator.
Yeah,
but he's kind of not a heel commentator. Like, not enough. Like, he'll root for the heel team and then kind of say like, I'm supposed to be an impartial commentator, but I'm just rooting for who I think is the best. But so far the commentary team, and including Ian Riccaboni, is great.
Yeah, Riccaboni has been. I think he's been very good in filling in too. Like, I'm really impressed with him.
He has his own kind of flair that he adds when he's trying to give you the backstory on.
Yeah,
he adds a lot of emotion to the commentary, which is also, well needed in some of these feuds, kind of conveying the emotion. But yeah, so the commentary team has been great. And you know what? I really like these little things that they do. And each show does kind of their own little thing to try to individualize themselves. But this thing they do in the beginning of Collision, where they just get like the main event tag team or the main event trio out here cutting a promo, like, tonight I'm going to do this, it seems something like straight out of the 80s, but it's pretty cool. The show kicks off. You've got all these guys standing there as if they're like literally in the back, warming up for their match, or they're just hanging out in the go position or something, So we hear from the the main event wrestlers in the beginning of the show, and that just kind of sets the tone right there. It just gets us off like, on the right start.
I mean, I don't know if this is on purpose, but that's how the Saturday night's main events used to go. They would always start with like everybody who's going to be on the show cutting a little promo. I like to think that it's a new Saturday show, so maybe they're giving an homage to that. So I don't know. I like it.
Yeah, and it's quick. You just get a little quick hit from each person. Yep. It's not this, in-depth promo or this ranting soliloquy. It's like, like you just had FTR and CM Punk, and, or Ricky Starks is just standing there. And Ricky Starks has been, to me, one of the stars of Collision so far, because the show is obviously centered around one Philip Seymour Punk, and he's doing great too. Like I said before we started, he hasn't had a bad match since he's been back,
Yeah, you're right.
But yes, a lot of talent. We knew going in there was going to be the people that were in the sort of the promo, right? Like Andrade, Miro's coming back. Thunder Rosa will hopefully eventually be on our television. CM Punk is going to be the star of the show. But yeah, it seems like we've been getting a lot of those guys, but also, some of the other AEW talent, like the Acclaimed, which we're going to talk about a little bit later when we talk about Billy Gunn possibly retiring.
Yep.
But the House of Black, it seems like the trios title and the tag team titles are kind of both going to be featured maybe more heavily on Collision. Maybe the tag team title would be the one to kind of go back and forth. But they've clearly kind of established that the trios are going to be on Collision, it seems.
And I think that's fine. I don't mind. I just wanted them to establish something. So now we know what we can look forward to, especially with House of Black, who I really love.
Yeah. So is Collision the best wrestling show? And because of the way I worded this question, I think I'm going to say yes, Collision is the best wrestling show. It has become the best wrestling show. For one, because it's no worse than any other 2 hours, or in the case of Raw, 3 hours of TV of wrestling on TV, meaning it's just as good as any other show as far as the quality of talent. And then I think what they are purposely doing to set this show apart is having, like I said, these all-timers and these match of the year candidates, these great wrestling matches on the show that maybe they wouldn't put on Dynamite, where everything is based on these quarter-hour, 15-minute segments and going into picture-in-picture and commercials, and when your segment's over, getting it right out the door and on to the next one, and filling up the show with so many in-between promos and Pork's Calibers, never allowed to take a sip of water.
Poor guy.
As I'm going to do right now. Not auditorily, though. And we're back.
Yes.
So, yes. What do you think, Kris? Do you think Collision is the best wrestling show, or do you have a different show in mind?
No, I think it is, because I can't think of anything that as pure wrestling that's going on right now that I look forward to. Like, have I gone back and watched a match from SmackDown or Raw or anything just a couple days later, like I did with the tag team match? I have not in months. So for me to actually go back and want to rewatch something, especially something that was an hour long, and be happy about it, that to me means it's the best wrestling we're going to see.
I've been DVRing some episodes of Collision. I mean, you have to in life when there's stuff going on. And it's going to be interesting coming up this week, or not this week, but next week, because you've got Collision on Saturday, and you've also got WWE SummerSlam. So we'll see. That's going to be, you're going to have to DVR. I'm going to be DVRing Collision. Spoiler, sorry. I don't see it as a problem if I watch the show.
No,
I guess maybe they might be inclined to want more live viewers, because then you can't fast forward through the commercials. But that's really the only difference I see. Like, I'm watching your show on DVR,
Hey, let's not forget either. You got NXT's Great American Bash this Saturday, so.
Oh, right. And some people might watch that.
Oh no, people are gonna watch Collision over that, I will bet. But yeah, and I don't mean to say that I watch Collision live all the time and then rewatch a match, but going back a second time, no matter when I first watch it, is very telling to me that that's the best wrestling we're getting. I go back maybe and watch a segment of the Bloodline, but no matches really.
Yeah. So, and obviously I'm not really including I don't watch every single episode of Impact, New Japan Strong. I watch them when I can. I don't watch. I don't watch every single New Japan event live. I eventually get around to watching New Japan, like almost like their pay-per-views, I guess you'd say, their events.
Yeah.
But, you know, NXT is coming along, but there's still a lot of stuff on that show to me that is actually developmental, you know?
You're right. Yeah, exactly. You're right.
So it's interesting comparing Collision to Dynamite because I don't see a comparison, especially if they're trying to do two different things. But if you were to compare them, it seems like Dynamite is where there's a lot of Tony Schiavone segments and Renee Paquette segments, and Collision there's a lot of Dax Harwood really tired.
Very good.
Like Dax Harwood is just sweating and out of breath. No, there was one moment in that match where you could tell these dudes were all so tired. They came back and everything, and they weren't like completely gassed out, but you could tell they were trying some stuff. And even like Jay White was like looking like, oh my God, these guys they were pushing it.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that was a great match. Collision is generally a great show. I've got no complaints about it. Other than that, I just wish there was maybe more of it.
Yeah. But so far, yeah, let's go. I look forward to it.
And of course, we've got Scorpio Sky. He's sitting up in the catbird seat, watching the unfolding events of Collision. So that's intriguing.
I forgot about that. That's true. I like that long-term story they're planning there too.
He came back and had a match, first match in like a while on Collision. So yeah, we talked about Malachi Black. Or did we talk about Malachi Black? He's on Collision. He's over here convincing Billy Gunn to retire via like telepathy, which we'll talk about Billy Gunn at the end of the show, like I said. But yeah, the House of Black, they are on Collision. Malachi Black is still pushing this sort of supernatural something with that eyeball. Like remember Sting, he had that eyeball thing where he sprayed Sting and then Sting had the eyeball, but Sting's even no-selling your supernatural moves.
Yeah, well.
Sting popped up out of that coffin with that virus in his eyeball, but it didn't faze him.
Some things just can't faze the man called Sting, all right?
Like your finishing maneuver 2/3 of the way through the match, it had no impact on Sting.
When you can do a front flip off of the stage when you're 70 years old, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, but I just reminded me of Malachi Black with the eyeball paint, and then Sting had the eyeball paint because there was a Comic-Con exclusive Sting action figure with the Malachi Black face paint on there.
Nice.
And we never really found out, like, the whole face paint thing with Malachi Black, it's supposed to be like he's like infecting you. But like, who did he infect Sting, or was Sting trolling him with the face paint?
Oh man, good question. Maybe, but so far on Collision, that kind of stuff hasn't fallen off, right? So like so far, like stories have kind of not been forgotten, which sometimes happens on Dynamite, like that one. So that's another good reason that Collision's top tier.
Yeah, so do you actually want to talk about Jungle Boy next? And then we can do LA Knight after?
Yeah, that's fine.
Just because we'll stick with the AEW theme here.
Yep.
All right, so Jungle who? I was watching Dynamite the other night, and they played, what was it, Beethoven's Fifth Symphony? Is that the song that Jack Perry? Who chose this song for him? Is this a Tony Khan product shizzle?
It's probably a lot cheaper than what song was it that Tony Khan said was too expensive?
That was the Rolling Stones? No, I don't know.
I think maybe it was for Daniel Bryan. Daniel Bryan, I still call him that. Jeez.
Oh yeah, it was the Final Countdown. Yes.
I'm sure it was cheaper, and I know it's pretty cool. It's a lot different than his old theme, so I get it.
It's an interesting choice. I see what they're doing with young Jungle here, Jack Perry, who is no longer Jungle Boy. He's no longer from the jungle. He is now, folks. I'm about to break some news. Jack Perry is now wearing pants. Feast your eyes.
Dun.
Feast your eyes, folks. This is Jack Perry with pants on. That's right. A future Jazzwares figure. Jack Perry with pants and with his hair tied back for once. I don't think I've ever seen Jungle Boy with his hair tied back until this turn. Until after he attacked Hook.
I don't think so either, but listen, I know that he's a little rough still, but at the very least, they're doing things to make him different. Tying the hair back. Jungle pants, if you will. Jungle jeans, right? The leather jacket, different music. That's the way you make someone turn. So at least that's going good.
They did about as slow of a walk as possible of I'm not Jungle Boy anymore, because he could have just came out one day and said that. But it was literally like JR's mistakenly calling him Jungle Jack all the time, and then it was Jungle Boy. And then all of a sudden, his intro lower third says Jungle Boy Jack Perry. He's still Jungle Boy, but now he's Jungle Boy Jack Perry. Then it was like Jack Perry. What's Jack Perry doing? Jungle Boy Jack Perry. And then once he attacks Hook, he's just Jack Perry.
I like how you were so sad. You're like Jack Perry.
Jungle Boy is no more. Yeah, and he confirmed that this week on Dynamite when he came out the new FTW champion. That's right, folks. Jungle Boy is a champion. I'm sorry, Jack Perry. Jungle who? Jack Perry is a champion. And he is the FTW champion. And I just love everything. This is what I've wanted them to do with the FTW title from the beginning. Always be bothering Taz with it. Because it's like Taz brought it back, but a Taz guy can't hold the belt forever, right? So the title's got to circulate. Somebody's got to beat him, take it, win, you know. So you got to be getting in Taz's face when you've got his championship, right? Especially when you beat his son for it. So I really like how Jungle Boy went right for Taz in his promo. And he starts talking about Taz, and Taz is just barely able to hold it together. I don't know how Taz makes it through a shift of working for this company with this going on with his championship and his family. I mean, Hook is gone. We saw that video. Hook got on a train. He's gone. He's the runaway. Oh, yeah. Ruby Soho's not the runaway anymore. Hook is. But yeah, so Hook is nowhere to be seen. He's gone. He's not in the mix. But Taz is still here on commentary, and he doesn't appreciate the disrespect. So Jungle Boy starts going into how he would, beat up Taz, and he said he would beat up any of Taz's buddies in ECW back in the day. So this is where I thought there would be a larger contingency of ECW fans in the crowd, but there wasn't this giant reaction that I figured there would be to that. So I started to think once Jungle Boy started talking about other ECW people, I started to run in my head. I'm like, oh, is this going to be Tony Khan, like, bringing back some random old legend, like when they brought back Homicide? Not saying Homicide was an ECW, but just saying, just they bring back the legend that you didn't expect, you didn't think was going to show up. It's probably just a 1 or 2 off appearance. Who's Tony Khan going to bring in? I'm running these people. I'm thinking to myself, who's even alive from ECW, right? Like, unfortunately, can't get Balls Mahoney to show up, Unfortunately, We're not going to be seeing Axel Rotten tonight. Unfortunately, we cannot have New Jack, hit the ring.
That would have been great, though.
None of those individuals are with us any longer. And plenty of other ECW. I started to think, I'm like, who is even still with us? I started to think, is the Sandman going to come out here? Is he in good enough shape to make it to the ring? I saw him on Dark Side of the Ring a while ago. I think it was the New Jack episode was the last time I think I saw Sandman on Dark Side. Yeah. I'm thinking just who do they got? And this is all in like a 5-second span going through my mind, right? And then Jerry Lynn starts walking out to the ring. And I'm still thinking the same thing. I'm still thinking, who are they going to get from ECW back in the day to come out here and face off? And Jerry Lynn's walking to the ring, and he popped me a little bit when he said, hold on, Jungle. Come on. It's like, yes, now everyone should just call him just Jungle. Like, don't make fun of him when he's actually trying to get this Jungle Boy gimmick over. Like, at that point, you got to take it seriously. But now that he's trying to be too cool to be Jungle Boy, it's like, hey, hang on, Tarzan boy. Take a seat.
Absolutely.
But yeah, so that was funny, I thought. And then, of course, he has to say, Jungle Boy is dead. I'm Jack Perry. Which is fine. You're Jack Perry. I get it.
Yeah.
And, but then I'm realizing, like, oh, wait a sec. That's Jerry Lynn. Yeah, so I just didn't think of Jerry Lynn. I mean, I'm thinking about Teflon Taz. He's not getting in the ring. No. I don't know why I thought this was Teflon Jerry as well. But Jerry Lynn is going to face off with Jungle Boy next week on Dynamite. Jungle Boy, now you have fucked up.
Absolutely. I don't know how, like you said, I don't know how good Jerry Lynn still is as far as ring shape goes, but it'd be awesome if he could do anything.
I am fully expecting mid-90s Supreme Jerry Lynn, just nothing but blonde hair flipping all over the ring. Oh, he doesn't have the hair anymore either.
I mean, if I was being honest, I was thinking who they gonna get too. My first two thoughts were Sabu because we saw him before in AEW, right? And then I thought maybe is Rob Van Dam all right to wrestle still? Those are my two guesses. I think your point is interesting though, that no one really cared when ECW got mentioned, which shows how like long ago that was and how the new wrestling fans are.
Yeah. I was really hoping. I was really, because I kind of guessed, like, once he said I beat up all your buddies in ECW, I was hoping that would be like
Yeah,
like maybe Taz does get up and start walking on the ring, you know? But no. Teflon Taz. He has Hook for these things now. And
yeah, he'll be on soon. Hook went on a train, but it's coming back.
And yeah, it's like the train left, but Hook will be back eventually.
It's like a monorail. It just comes back.
To be honest, I thought that was a great way to kind of exit stage left for Hook. Like, more wrestlers should do that. Like, if you do this whole story, like somebody's going to win, somebody's going to lose, get that momentum and kind of like, you always want to hear from somebody kind of right after. And in this case, it's Jungle Boy. You just won the title, or Jungle Who? You just won the title. And now here you are. It's like, we got to hear from this jerk to see what he had to say. But if you're the other guy, rather than just take a week off, make a little vignette to say like, I'm going here, like Bryan Danielson did when he's like screaming into the abyss about how he misses his family, and he was gone for like a solid 2 weeks after that.
Yeah.
But I thought he was going to be gone for like months. But anyway, yeah. So Hook is out of the picture. So Jerry Lynn has to come out and face off with Jungle Boy. Be very interesting to see what we get out of Jerry Lynn. Whatever we get out of him is a bonus. At this point, I had no intention of ever witnessing Jerry Lynn wrestle again.
I know.
I mean, let's face it. Even if he doesn't actually wrestle, it's going to be great.
Yeah, I wonder how the crowd's going to react to, because I'm sure that Jack Perry is going to like beat him down, right? That's how you get heels over, beat up old guys and stuff and legends. I wonder if people are going to care about that. It'll be interesting.
Oh yeah, meaning like, you know, he just beats up Jerry Lynn, and Jerry Lynn doesn't actually amaze us like he has in the early 90s.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure Jerry Lynn's gonna put up a good fight, but you know, in the end, Jack Perry's gonna have to do something like beat him down, right? I don't know, like, yeah. You know, will anyone care?
You know who we're not talking about here? Jungle Boy is no more. The gimmick is gone. He now wears pants. But what about his friend who is a dinosaur? Is he still a dinosaur?
That's a great point.
Luchasaurus. What's his real name? Are we going to have to go back and look at the Big Brother credits to find out the real name of Luchasaurus? Or is he still a dinosaur?
Are there genes that you could put on a man who was a dinosaur?
Is he going to be the dinosaur? Because I only have one pair of Kenny Omega jeans to put on my Jazzwares figures. So if I got to take that Luchasaurus out and put jeans on him, Jungle Boy's not going to have a pair of legs. So yeah, I have to buy another Kenny Omega to get another pair of jeans.
Oh.
But yeah, I was just thinking, Jungle Boy, he's Jack Perry. What about Luchasaurus? That's a conversation they should have filmed. It's like, hey, listen, I'm not Jungle Boy anymore. It's like, what are you talking about? You were raised in a jungle.
Yeah.
I raised you in a jungle. So yeah, we had to talk about the latest heel. What does that sound, Chris? I keep hearing a bop, bop, bop. What's happening?
Is that from me?
Yeah. That's you.
Wow, I heard that too. Let me see.
Is it your phone?
No.
Are you getting texts?
No, it's not close by. Let's see what I got here. What could be popping up?
Are you getting IMs? Like,
that's what it sounds like, but no.
Are you pushing a button? Are you pushing like volume or something?
No, I'm just sitting here.
Weird. Anyways. All right. So now let's talk about LA Knight. So I don't know if you know this, Chris, but it's hard to find a hotter act in WWE than LA Knight. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes, I agree.
And I don't know if you know this, but he was in a four-way match the other week on SmackDown, and he did not win that match.
He did not.
I couldn't believe this. Can you believe this? WWE is going downhill. The boom period is over if they don't push LA Knight. No, just kidding, of course. But I definitely wanted to talk about LA Knight and if WWE is going to give him the big push that the fans want, or are they going to look over LA Knight like they do so many other talents and have so many times over the years? What do you think we're going to see with the push of one LA, not Drake.
I mean, so are you talking to the championship level? Because I could see them never putting him even in the U.S. title. But will he be featured all the time? You know, will he be in high-profile matches? I definitely think that's going to happen. You know, I think whether or not that match was good or bad, probably bad. I think putting him in a match with Bray Wyatt, the whatever Mountain Dew Pitch Black match, like they think that's very important. And I think him doing that was like a first showing of like we have faith in LA Knight. And he always sells merch, so that's the thing that'll help you get over. And even when he started NXT, he wasn't really in the plans. Then he eventually won the title and was always in the main event. So I could see it happening, especially with Triple H.
Yeah, and we had all those videos going viral the other week of LA Knight appearing in like random TV shows and commercials, and his previous tenure in NXT.
Yep.
And yeah, I think everybody's coming around to LA Knight. Obviously, is WWE? I think so. I think it's going to be. I think the fans are going to be complaining, but I think it's going to be a little bit different than in the past, where in the past your favorite guy, Kofi, Ricochet, Daniel Bryan, whomever, just wholly got looked over, and it was either we'll bury them if we even care enough to bury them, right? Otherwise, we'll just stop. We'll just take them off TV if we feel like it, right? And I think in this case, they're already kind of showing you what they're going to do, because they're already still giving you LA Knight. Like, he's still the one guy who always gets to come out to the arena and cut a promo. And even though he didn't win the match with Santos Escobar won the match, which is, I mean, it's like a little bit of a head scratcher. Like, I would totally like to see, you know, LA Knight wins that 4-way match, then he goes and he beats Rey Mysterio, or was Rey Mysterio in the match that he was in? No, it was Santos.
No. Yeah.
So obviously we're getting the Santos Escobar Rey Mysterio match, but I would have loved to see LA Knight go in there, beat Rey Mysterio. He goes into SummerSlam, beats Austin Theory, because why not? You already had Austin Theory beat John Cena, right?
Yep.
He has good matches, but they don't really do anything with him. So LA Knight, you know, is the fans' choice. Why not have him beat Austin Theory at SummerSlam? He's selling the most merch. Maybe they're looking at it as he's already selling the most merch. Why do we have to actually have him win a match?
I do think that's happening a little bit, yeah. Kind of like The Undertaker used to be. That's why he never really won titles, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's quite like that, but I think it's like, I think what the difference between Triple H running the show with Vince McMahon still being present and Vince McMahon running the entire show is that I think Triple H, the way they're still using LA Knight, instead of trying to take him away from us, they're still giving him to us, they're just not changing their plans for him, maybe yet. I think that if the momentum continues on LA Knight's side, I don't think they have a choice. I think they have to put him in these big matches. I mean, I could see LA Knight, you know, facing Roman Reigns at obviously losing, but you know, maybe not Survivor Series, but I could easily see LA Knight challenging Roman Reigns at a PLE. You know, maybe not. There's only so many months. I mean, it really is. There's already only a few big shows between now and WrestleMania, which is crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. You've got Roman. He's going to be at Survivor Series. Probably won't see him again till... I mean, he's going to be at SummerSlam. Probably won't see him again until Survivor Series. And won't see him again until the Royal Rumble. And then there you go. That's it. Then it's time for WrestleMania.
Yeah.
And it's time for this thing that everybody thinks is going to happen, which is Cody's going to come back in and beat Roman Reigns at WrestleMania. And whomever is going to face Roman Reigns at WrestleMania, it's obviously not going to be LA Knight. But what I'm saying is I can see LA Knight being one of those challengers for Roman. I mean, if he's super hot, maybe you could do it at the Royal Rumble. Or Survivor Series. Obviously, the Survivor Series is usually kind of the brand versus brand show these days. But yes, I'm saying that LA Knight deserves more than he's getting, and it could still be on the horizon. Just because, like I said, in the past, I feel like once the fans start to really get behind somebody, if it's not who the leadership over in Titan Towers, if it's not who they wanted you to like, they would make that guy disappear, right?
Yeah.
And the fact that they're still giving us LA Knight, just like they did with Sami Zayn, right? They didn't say like, oh no, they're leaning into it, but they're never going to give us the whole
Sure.
LA Knight. I mean, because all I wanted them to win was the the U.S. title, and they're already kind of, not even doing that.
Yeah, that kind of makes me upset too, because the way that Gunta has elevated the Intercontinental title, and we kind of wanted him to be the champ, right? We wanted him to get a belt over on Raw. That could be LA Knight, especially with Theory. Like you said, Austin Theory's fine. He puts on good matches, but like he really doesn't do much else, and they don't really seem to care about him that much. So I'd love to have a guy who we can get behind, like LA Knight, having that secondary title and making it matter.
Yeah, and the age thing with LA Knight, if anybody thinks he's too old for this or that, pretty sure he's about 4.5 minutes older than Damian Priest. So,
and Seth Rollins, they're close in age too.
So I don't think age is an issue here.
Because I mean, with LA Knight, I don't. Because what I think about is like when Jake Roberts was in his heyday, like he never won any titles, but he always had promo time. He always did great work, and I think we remember him as one of the best because of that. But I think that was fine back then. But now I don't think we can accept someone just being on the show all the time and cutting promos and being in high-profile matches unless they win a title. I don't think fans will kind of gravitate toward just a guy who's like featured a lot but not winning titles.
I think that's the thing where I think Triple H might actually be able to accomplish that. You know what I mean? Where
I hope so.
Again, he gives you what you want. He gives you the people you want. They just aren't winning the match.
Hopefully we can all be okay with that, because you're right. It's nice to have, it's not like when Zack Ryder was getting popular, right? And they just covered him, just buried him to death, or Wade Barrett in the Nexus too. That was okay, but they kind of smushed that too. At least you're right. LA Knight is kind of featured.
Like I said, I think Triple H is going to be better at, putting him in those matches, those number one contender matches, so you tune in, and then it's like we're still going to pick who we want to pick.
Yeah, I think that's okay.
But yeah, another thing with LA Knight, did you see this Kevin Nash assessment of LA Knight, saying that I think he's since kind of walked it back somewhat, but a few weeks ago, Big Kev came out and said that LA Knight was a ripoff of the Rock. Can you believe this? Do you agree with this?
I mean, I think insofar as people like him and he has catchphrases, that all it is.
Yeah, and that he has charisma. I mean, at this point, he literally does an elbow drop. I don't know if the elbow drop came after the comparison to The Rock, but he does his own version of the people's elbow now. So it's like that. I don't know, but like going back when he was Eli Drake and everything, I didn't think he was a ripoff of The Rock. Is MJF a ripoff of CM Punk because he talks for minutes on end?
Yeah, good point. Yeah,
it's just if someone has the same tone, and you could just as easily say he's a ripoff of Stone Cold Steve Austin. Stone Cold said what, and LA Knight says yeah. They're both one-word catchphrases. It's like, and I do see the similarities with kind of the charismatic, fast-talking, in-your-face electricity, but I don't see him. Maybe he is. Maybe he's modeling his whole career after The Rock, but I just don't see him literally trying to copy The Rock. But I do think the elbow drop is kind of a nice touch. That it's similar at this point.
Yeah, I don't think he's like copying The Rock. I think he probably just watched Rock's one of the greatest, so I'm sure he rubs off on you. And I think you're right. When you have charisma, it's going to be, who are you going to think of? Like the people who have had the most charisma ever. Yeah. That's The Rock. That's Austin. That's the only reason.
Yeah, I just thought it was funny because it's like, yeah, you can compare him in that it's a similar reaction, but that's like saying Bray Wyatt's a ripoff of The Undertaker.
Exactly, yeah.
So, yeah, I just thought that was an interesting take on LA Knight. But, when everybody starts talking about you, that, must mean you're doing something right. And then, what do you think of this idea? Do you think LA Knight could ever be big enough to actually do a segment in the ring with The Rock? Like, do you think The Rock would ever come back and they would use someone like LA Knight with him on screen, as opposed to just The Rock and Roman Reigns? Because it doesn't seem like that's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, if we're gonna look to just have The Rock come in and do a segment with no wrestling, yeah, LA Knight's like probably right on top of my list.
He'd be like John Cena. John Cena came back and he was in there with Grayson Waller, and then he left to go enjoy some time with his friends.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I actually think we broke down The Rock possibly coming back like every week before WrestleMania. Like,
Yeah.
what's going to happen this week? Could he be this week? You know, obviously, like way before that rumor kind of came out that he was not going to come back. But, you know, with this whole thing with The Rock and Black Adam and everything, and just the weirdness around him in Hollywood, and in general, just what's going on in Hollywood, I could see this as like, you know, there's peaks and valleys and stuff with actors. I could see this as a time where sometimes you think The Rock is too busy between running the XFL and making the next Fast and Furious movie and being a superhero. Sometimes you think he's too busy. I feel like now there might be an opportunity here for The Rock to come back to wrestling, like John Cena did, where it's like one-off appearances.
Yeah, I agree. I think so too.
And if that's going to happen, you know who you got to put him in there with. L.A. Knight.
I mean, there's not many people you could put in the ring and say they're just going to have a talking segment, and I'd be like, must see. That's must see, though.
Yeah. All right, so let's move on now, and let's talk about how the NXT talent is everywhere in WWE all of a sudden, and WWE talent is all over NXT. I'm actually watching NXT now.
That's the most impressive thing to me.
And when I watch SmackDown and I see the NXT people in the background, I know who they are.
That's great.
Crazy. I even know who the Cavender twins are.
Wow.
Crazy, right?
That's deep. Yeah.
No, come on. I'm like JR. I always scout the talent. I know who's coming up on the scene here.
That's right.
So yeah, no, we've been seeing the NXT talent utilized recently across all shows so much more than in the past. In the past, your plane would have had to gotten stuck on the tarmac in the Middle East before there was going to be an NXT wrestler on SmackDown, right?
Yes.
But no, I think what they're doing is great. Obviously, they're using the main roster talent on NXT much better than they have in the past. Because if you remember in the past, when they tried to do that NXT Survivor Series thing, they literally had Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins like invading like Full Sail the ring, and like Roman's like running around the ring, Seth Rollins is running around the ring, and it really wasn't a big deal, right? But now it's like you got Rhea Ripley and Dirty Dom Dom, however many names he has now. They're all over NXT, and people are actually watching it. Dominic Mysterio bumps up those NXT ratings to similar numbers that Dynamite gets when he's on.
It's crazy, but yeah.
So, and I mean, and him and Rhea are one of the most must-see things in WWE right now, for sure.
Yep.
But, yeah, no, I think it's great. I think you can definitely see that when they're bringing in main roster talent, Seth Rollins, you know, was Bobby Lashley running around there too, or am I mixing something up? I don't know. But all this main roster talent showing up on NXT, it's making a difference, right? It's probably actually helping the NXT talent as well, because then you're not just wrestling other people that are sort of in developmental. You got the world champ coming in and doing a match. So then, you know, that's good. That helps everybody, right?
Absolutely.
So that has been good for NXT. It's been making the shows a little better too. And then, I mean, plus when you have like Rhea Ripley and Lyra Valkyria, it's like, that's a good match.
Definitely.
I mean, especially like on paper, like when you're advertising it, it's a good match, you know?
It's like you said, it definitely gets people to watch. And like Dom's gonna take on Mustafa Ali and Wes Lee on Great American Bash. That's like people are gonna want to watch that because they've been watching and they've seen Dom as a champ. So
that thing is gonna be sitting so warm in my DVR. It's just gonna stay in my DVR nice and warm.
Yes, it is.
And then when I turn it on, it's gonna be hot.
Very good.
Keeping it warm right in my DVR, meaning I'm gonna watch it relatively right after. It's not gonna be like days later.
Yeah.
So yeah, Dom Mysterio, Wes Lee. I think Wes Lee's probably winning that belt back.
Your boy Baron Corbin too, doing great work.
Baron Corbin, caring about Baron Corbin, folks. Stop the presses. We have Baron Corbin matches that are important because now Baron Corbin is going to be taking on probably like the biggest prospect in the history of the wrestling industry, Gable Steveson.
Yeah.
I mean, that's... I don't really know how much... I don't really think we're going to be seeing the end of days and then a 1, 2, 3 from Baron Corbin in that one.
I don't think so either.
But Yeah, I'm sure after Gable Steveson makes quick work of Baron Corbin, Baron Corbin will be back on the right track.
I mean, yeah, but at least he's doing fun stuff, like throwing all of his old gimmicks in a fire,
Loved
That's
it.
good. It's cool.
Loved it. I want him to like throw other stuff in the fire. I just want to watch Baron Corbin throw stuff in a fire. It's the most interesting thing he's done since that promo where he pissed everybody off when he was in NXT. But anyway, yeah. So even like I said, even Baron Corbin matters these days.
Yeah.
And then we're seeing the NXT talent. They're coming over to the main roster, and when they were in Orlando, I thought they utilized this NXT roster perfectly. You've got like Jey Uso. He's coming into the building. The NXT people are there. He's kind of like saying what's up to them. Like I said, you got the Cavender twins in the crowd. They were in town. I don't know if they're training. I don't know their actual status. I don't know if they're fully training at the PC or if they're just kind of in and out or whatever. If they were just in town for that. But, they've got their NIL people. They've got the actual NXT roster. And it's just, to me, it's like this infusion where in the past, you felt like Vince McMahon didn't even know who these people were.
Yeah.
And they're having better shows than, like we did that Sasha and Bayley match on Rewinding the Tape, which you can check out in the podcast archives. And we talked about how that was a night before SummerSlam. And that whole show got better reviews than the SummerSlam show.
Oh, yeah.
And I bet you Vince McMahon didn't know who those people were.
Definitely not.
A lot of people there. So, because you could tell in general, what we used to get is these NXT, like the people that you really thought in NXT were going to make it, they would then get called up, usually the night after WrestleMania, right? Like the Wyatt family, Enzo and Cass. If you guys remember the pop Enzo and Cass got on their main roster debut, I mean, it would surprise you if you go back and watch it, especially where they are now. Big Bill's doing some things, though, for sure. But anyway, one of the two of them is still making waves, but I'm just saying that all these NXT people used to get these big main roster debuts, and then they would really fall off a cliff. And it would happen to all of our favorites. Almost a guarantee, if you had a really great, solid character in NXT, gonna get ruined on the main roster. Cut to Karrion Kross wearing the Demolition Dominatrix clothing, or the red Sultan mask, or whatever that was.
I didn't know what you were going to say, but that's the first thing that came into my head too.
It's like, that's what happened with so many people. And already we're now seeing the NXT people, they're just being used in these little background roles, and it's already better, because it's like saying, we know who they are and you do too. And we know that,
I think it's also for like, as much as when NXT was at its hottest, as much as I thought it was one of the best, maybe the best show that was on, and you think, like, how could people not know who these guys are? A lot of people who watch WWE, the main roster, don't know. So just to introduce some of these people, even in backstage segments or just Cole or someone saying who they are on TV, it gets their name in people's casual fans' heads or people who don't like NXT. And then when they come up to the main roster or have any kind of match, you're like, oh, I kind of know them. And that's way better.
Yeah, and I think that really, even back in the day, like I said, Enzo and Cass got a big pop because people did know who they were, I think, at that point in NXT.
Yeah.
And it's like, really, the fans knew who they were, but it was Vince McMahon who didn't know what the heck to do with these people.
Yeah.
So it's like the fans were clamoring for whatever, Tommaso Ciampa and Gargano or the Wyatt family or anybody, all these people that were in NXT, and or like even like Rusev.
Yeah.
But like then they would have these main roster runs where it's like they're falling off a cliff.
Tommaso Ciampa is a Miz stooge. Come on.
Yeah. And even before, when they first came up, when they were like having a blood feud on NXT, and then they're coming up as like buddies on Raw.
Yeah.
It's just like, it was like, I was even scratching my head like, what am I supposed to think here about this?
Yeah, that was fun. That was crazy.
Just all that stuff that used to happen. And it really made you think, like, they don't know who they have. Because then cut to, before the pandemic and then during the pandemic, they're cutting everybody. That was good. And then Triple H obviously rehired a bunch of those people, and some of them have, flourished, like Chelsea Green.
Yes.
The new women's tag team champion, Chelsea Green. She was cut, And she was definitely like a tryhard. I don't feel like that's an insult, Like she was definitely somebody who cared a lot about her character, her career, had ideas. Yeah. And it's like they just didn't care. at a certain, to a certain extent. And now you can see those people coming back. And for one, like I said, they're flourishing on the main roster. Like we used to talk about how some people are Triple H guys. Now it's like the whole roster, Yeah,
it's good.
So NXT talent is everywhere in WWE. And I even appreciate seeing good old HBK. Do they still call him that? Do they still call him HBK? I don't think so.
I bet you some people call him Heartbreak, or they definitely call him Sean. Like Jerry Lynn calls Jack Perry Jungle. They definitely call Shawn Michaels Sean, even though his name is not Sean in the real world.
Heartbreak.
Or Heartbreak. Nash calls him that, definitely.
And Johnny Gargano, obviously.
Yes. See, there you go.
All right, so we talked about LA Knight. We talked about NXT. We talked about Jungle. Now, let's talk about Mr. Ass. Not Daddy Ass, Mr. Ass.
Yes, be respectful.
The Hall of Famer.
Formal names, yeah.
Billy Gunn. Because Billy Gunn may have retired. I think he did, but rewatching it, I could easily see like a whole feud with Malachi Black with Billy Gunn. But yes, Billy Gunn, after a losing effort, taking the pin in, was it a trios title match or just a trios match?
I believe it was a title match
against the trios champions, the House of Black, the Acclaimed, and Daddy Ass, came up short. And in the ring, Billy Gunn took off his boots and left them in the ring, indicating that he is calling it quits, retiring from wrestling. He's already in the WWE Hall of Fame as a member. Well, as a member of DX, or did they not induct him, or did they just not let him show up?
I believe he was there, and wasn't he? Didn't they indict? I believe he was there.
No, they let him go. He was.
Yeah, he was there.
Who they weren't gonna? Oh, that was somebody else. I'm thinking of something else. So he was there because that was the Triple H line where he said Vince will buy that pissant company.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, anyways, moving on. Billy Gunn hanging him up, leaving him in the ring. The Acclaimed stunned, and of course there was this weird thing where Malachi Black was like whispering into Billy Gunn like a spell, right?
Yes.
So we don't know what kind of soothsayer Malachi Black is. His powers are still a mystery, but it kind of came off on TV like Malachi Black in that very moment convinced Billy Gunn to retire and convinced him to go into like a form of mania.
Yeah, it doesn't. Maybe he is retiring and good for him, but it does scream to me an angle more than he's actually retiring.
And I mean, obviously he's going to have to hang him up at some point, but I think for one, the fans, and most importantly, Billy Gunn, deserve much more of a moment than that if he is really retiring,
Yeah,
because
exactly.
It seemed also, aside from the Malachi Black angle, if he was really retiring, it seemed like it was also possible that the gravity of the moment could have just gotten to him and he just wanted to get the heck out of there because he was about to cry like a baby. That could also be the case. That really was it for him. And he was just like, I can't face the fans. I can't, So we're not sure if it was real or kayfabe, pal.
Interesting though, right?
But I'm just saying, I think Billy Gunn, even if now they come out, maybe he'll be like a little bit more composed and he can come out and get his flowers and get a nice ovation and all that. Because there was literally people in the first couple of rows when he was untying his boots being like, no. Yeah. So it's like that he did definitely look like he was about to cry, and then he kind of sped off. But yes, he didn't even turn around and wave to the arena type of thing, which I thought was a shame if it really was his last match. So here's to hoping we see more of Daddy Ass, not because I need to see him again as a wrestler, because I think anybody who wants to retire, it's up to them. I don't want to pressure anybody to stay too long in the game. But I just think, he's had such a illustrious career at this point. And then this out-of-nowhere resurgence in AEW for Billy Gunn, I think caught everybody by surprise.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? And then it was also legitimate, too, because he's still in there wrestling, and he's doing the thing that is the most important, which is getting the crowd to react. Which, really, if you think about it, few people in AEW get the crowd to react more than the Acclaimed and Billy Gunn.
Absolutely.
he had this line he said in an interview. I don't remember who the interview was with. I apologize. But he said, like, the quote that I saw on Fightful, I just don't know if they actually did the interview, if they were just, like, aggregating. It said, Billy Gunn says, I walk through the airport and all I do is scissor. It's all anybody wants to do. It's just so, because it's like, yeah, everybody wants a scissor, but it's so funny. Like, can you imagine somebody saying that? Like, I walk through the airport, all I do is scissor.
That's hilarious. Yes.
It's like, heck yeah.
So this guy has to go through airports scissoring, and then like 25 years ago, he had to go through airports doing suck it signs. Like,
all I do
what
is
a time.
scissor.
That's crazy.
Like, what do you do on the weekends? All I do is scissor. Like, and he's just saying it like, all I do is scissor. Like, because he's telling you, like, everybody wants to come up to him and do the scissor thing, but I'm just hearing him say, all I do is scissor.
That's very good. I love it.
Like, it's all I fucking do. Yeah, it's all anybody wants to do is scissor me. That's literally what he said.
Oh god.
And it's true. It's like, yeah, it's like, you know. And then the funniest thing is, like, scissor me daddy ass is just like the most ridiculous thing to say out loud or put on a t-shirt. And here we are. Scissor me daddy ass.
Yeah, imagine you don't know what's going on. You're in an airport and someone says that to him. You're like, what's happening?
And shout out to Danhausen, because that is a 100% Danhausen name, daddy ass.
Yep.
And then just like the Ass Boys is also a Danhausen original. People don't give him credit.
They should.
So yeah, so I hope you haven't seen the last of Billy Gunn. We may have, though. And in any case, thank you for the career. Thank you for the matches, daddy ass. That's all I can really say.
Listen, if I see him in an airport, I'm going to ask him to scissor. That's it.
Just remember when I remember this random moment in the All-In pre-show Battle Royal, and Billy Gunn, I mean, I'm going to have to bust out my censor for this episode. Billy Gunn is, like, about to do a famouser on Jimmy Jacobs, and Jimmy Jacobs is, like, doing this weird, like provocative thing, and Billy Gunn does the suck it thing, and then Jimmy Jacobs is, like, not offended by the suck it sign or something, and he goes, and he just like grabs him by the hair, and it does the famouser to him. It was just the most random moment of being like, he does the suck it thing, and the other guy's like not offended by it, and he just goes, I'm just that was the moment for me where it's like, is Billy Gunn going to be able to exist in the current wrestling world? And yes, he was. Anything else you got that you want to talk about before we get out of here? We got SummerSlam coming up next week. So we'll talk about SummerSlam next week. Sorry we didn't get to the Blood and Guts match and Kota Ibushi's debut in AEW. We watched it. We saw it. It was a decent Blood and Guts match. It was a decent bed of nails, you know.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of beds of nails, you know, in my life. So
especially with Moxley. Come on.
No, it was very good. The ending was a little bit of botchski there with Wheeler Yuta. Nobody knew how the damn match ended, but yeah, looking back, there was a lot of crazy spots in that Blood and Guts match. It was just the timing was weird in that one. It always is. Like, I've heard people say about other Blood and Guts matches in the past that, you know, that they didn't love it or whatever, and I thought the match was great, and that's kind of how I was with this one. But obviously, people are getting destroyed with glass and thumbtacks and a bed of nails. So that was interesting, but yeah. So didn't really have a show last week to break that one down. But one thing I want to talk about before we get out of here is the city of Worcester, Kris. I don't even know if I should. I don't even know if I should continue to talk about the city of Worcester. I don't know if I'll ever be back there. I would say I hope not, but I probably will. So I don't want to say that. But the disdain for the city of Worcester on the part of one Max Caster. This is a great segue from Billy Gunn and the Acclaimed into Max Caster and Worcester. So Max Caster, for those who don't know, is like feuding with the city of Worcester on the show Wrestling Open, and which is at the White Eagle every week in Worcester. And we saw the clip where they're kicking out fans because the guy's going, "We star, we star, we star." And Max Caster's getting, approached by fans in Worcester. And says he's running for mayor of Worcester, and he's doing this thing where he's tagging like the shoot mayor of Worcester, just when people bring up like Worcester problems. And I don't know if it was this morning, it was on my feed this morning. He retweeted this random account that like documents all of the blight and like urban planning terribleness of the city of Worcester, like every ugly parking garage, every park that has a sludge leak in it with like traffic cones around it, and like just everything that's terrible about the architecture and the urban planning of the city of Worcester. I was going down the rabbit hole with this Twitter account, just talking about how apparently in Worcester there are these bike lanes, but everybody parks in the bike lanes, like even the police and like the electrical vehicles, like they all just park wall to wall in the bike lanes. So basically anybody without a car in the city of Worcester is completely screwed, according to this Twitter account. But yes, I think at that point we have about killed this thing dead. So thank you for sticking with us. Thank you for hanging out till the end of the podcast. We appreciate you here, as always. If you haven't already, be kind, like, and subscribe. We are now turning our little bits here on the show into YouTube shorts. So like Adam Sandler said, now you're all in big, big trouble. So check out our YouTube channel, hit the like button, check out our YouTube channel, find the podcast, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, is Stitcher still a thing, Google. We now have an Instagram. We are Watch Wrestling Podcast on Instagram, at W Wrestling Pod on Twitter. And what does this button do?